Welcome back, everyone. My name is Uhfgood, and you'll probably be seeing this video the same day as the other two videos, but the reason that I got a different shirt on and the layout's a little bit differently is just because it's the next day. Um, it's actually the July 3rd. It's Wednesday, July 3rd, whereas the other two videos were. Let me see something here. Anyways, the other two videos were July 2nd, yesterday. So I just thought it would be better to do it this way. So I calculated what would be approximately a 720p, 1280 by 720 resolution. Partly for my screenshots, but then also partly just so that I could use the maximum size here. I tried to. Here, actually, I can widen this out just a touch more. That. I'll just do that. Anyways, so, and then, of course, this is actually where I actually have, like, the to-do and characters and some permission thingy or whatever. Video description, story, all that stuff. But the video description up here as I make it. Anyways, so we were on our way to creating this roll the ball thing here, and let's see, sign in to track your progress. Which here I'm gonna sign in up here, which it should just automatically go to it. I shouldn't actually have to sign on. Now if I hit continue, the reason that this button's up in here is just because of how squished I got the web page. Collecting, scoring, and building, and we're probably getting to the. Let's see something here. Let's go to the continue on here. Collecting pickup objects, rollerball scoring points, right? Because we created the collectibles, including coloring them yellow. Although on my screen they look kind of a pale yellow. It's just because, I guess, because of the monitor. My second monitor they're more blue and more yellow, but that's just because the TV I'm using as my second monitor is a little bit different than this. But so now we're going to work on collecting the pickup objects. Collecting pickup objects, discussing physics, collisions, and triggers. So let's go ahead and get started with. Here, let's make sure this is always on top, which it is. I had everything set up, see, and I started it on time, if you noticed. And
we want to be able to pick up our collectible game objects when our player game object collides with them. To do this, we need to detect our collisions between the player game object and the pickup game objects. We will need to have these collisions trigger a new behavior, and we'll need to test these collisions to make sure we are picking up the correct
16
objects.
minutes.
The pickup objects, the player's sphere, the ground plane, and the walls all have colliders that inform us about collisions. If we didn't test our collisions to find out which objects we've collided with, we could collect the wrong objects. We could collect the floor or the walls. As a matter of fact, if we didn't test our collisions, on the very first frame of the game, we would come in contact with the ground plane, and we would collect the ground plane, and then we'd fall into the void of the scene space, and the game would essentially be over. First, we don't need our player to remain inactive, so let's tick the active checkbox and bring back our player.
Actually, I should do it the way I did before, and that is I should just switch it to that way. I can keep the video in full screen, and my stopwatch is still up here, so that's all good. And so let's go back to the player, and let's put him back into the scene. There we go. And let's save that, and go back to that.
Next, let's select the player controller script and open it for editing. Just a note, we can edit this script regardless of whether the game object is active or not. Now that we have the script open, what code are we going to write?
Okay, so I'm actually going to have to do that because I didn't actually open the. I didn't think I should have thought of that. But so let's see. Open reference for mono behavior. What happens if I do that? I'll look at it later. Let's see. Script. Okay. Let's just open that sucker up. And it's probably going to... Alright. So the thing here is I'm going to go ahead and... let's get out of full...
We could write...
Let's get out of full screen here for just a sec. And let's pull this down so that it too can be part of the deal here. Like so. And that should be okay. And then let's just expand this back out. And let's
collider,
go.
and then search the documentation using the hotkey combination. But there is a different way that we could do this as well. Let's return to Unity and look at the details of our player game object. What we are interested in here is the sphere collider component. In the header of each component on the left is the component's turn-down arrow, the icon, the enable checkbox if it's available, and the type of the component. On the right is the context-sensitive gear gizmo, and an icon of a little book with a question mark. Now this is what we need. This is the quick link to the component reference. If we select this icon, we are taken not to the scripting reference, but to the component reference. We would read this document to find out more about how to use this component in the context of the editor. We, however, want to find out how to script to this component's class. To do this, we simply switch to scripting. And we are taken to the scripting reference for the sphere collider. We want to detect and test our collisions. For this...
Now before, okay, so before I do anything, I'm going to go ahead and minimize this, and then I'm going to do that for a second here. So let's go to Unity, and then let's, where is the player? Okay, so now if I do this, this will take me directly to it. And then, like he said, switch to here. Now I can increase that temporarily and switch to scripting. And then that's all she wrote. Alright, so let's go ahead and go back into here. And actually what's funny is I can kind of leave this like this. In fact, let's do something here. Let's do that, because that's about the width that it's wanting to do. And so instead of actually shrinking that all the way down, I'll just do this, because right now I'm not reading text so much as I'm watching the video, and then the video I can still switch in between if I want to. And I still leave this at its size, because it's approximately the size of my screenshots. And the screenshots are just really for the thumbnails, but so there's that. Okay, so let's full screen and let's continue.
This project we are going to use on trigger enter.
Okay.
Just imagine if we were, say, a daring plumber, and we jumped up to collect a perfect arc of coins, and bounced off the very first one as we collected it and fell back to the ground. Not very elegant. This code will give us the ability to detect the contact between our player game object and our pickup game objects without actually creating a physical collision. The code example, however, is not exactly what we're looking for. But that's okay, we can change that. First, let's copy the code. And then let's return to our scripting application. Now that we're back in scripting, let's paste the code. As we have copied this code from a web page, let's correct the indents. In this case, I'm going to make sure the indents are tabs and that all of the tabs are correctly aligned. Next, let's look at this code. We are using the function onTriggerEnter. OnTriggerEnter will be called by Unity when our player game object first touches a trigger collider. We are given as an argument a reference to the trigger collider that we have touched. This is the collider called Other. This reference gives us a way to get a hold of the colliders that we touch. With this code, when we touch another trigger collider, we will destroy the game object that the trigger collider is attached to through the reference other.gameObject. By destroying that game object, the game object, all of its components, and all of its children and their components are removed from the scene. For the sake of example in this assignment, we won't destroy the other game object, we will deactivate it, just like we deactivated the player object when we were creating our pickup objects. First, let's remove the destroy other game object code from the function, but let's paste it down below our script as a palette to work with. How will we deactivate our pickup objects? Well, what clues do we have? We can address the other collider's game object through other.gameObject. We can see this here in the sample code. And we want to test the other game object, and if it's a pickup object, we want to deactivate that game object. So let's look up game object with our hotkey combination and see what we can find. Now we have the page on game object. There are a few important items here that we want. They are tag. Tag allows us to identify a game object by comparing the tag value to a string. And set active. This is how we activate or deactivate a game object through code. The last item we need to know about is compare tag. Compare tag allows us to efficiently compare the tag of any game object to a string value.
Okay.
Let's open up these 3 items, each in their own tab. Tag allows us to identify a game object by a tag value. We must declare our tags in the Tags and Layers panel before using them. It is possible to test a tag against a string value directly with code like if gameObject.tag is the same as some string value. But there is a more efficient built-in way to do this, and that is compare tag. With compare tag, we can efficiently compare the tag of any game object with a string value. Let's copy
Looks
the
like
sample
it's
code
longer
and paste
though,
it into
and
our
more
working palette.
complicated to do this, or you know.
Now, game object set active. This is how we activate or deactivate a game object. This is the code equivalent of clicking the active checkbox next to the name field in the inspector.
Okay.
In our case, just like the code snippet, we will call gameObject setActive false to deactivate our pickup game objects. Let's copy this code. And returning
That's
to
an
our script
interesting
editor,
way of
paste it into
doing
our palette
that.
as well. I feel we have enough pieces to write our code. So let's write if other.gameObject.compareTag with the string value of pickup. And we will have to declare this tag in Unity later. Other.gameObject.setActive false. Now this code will be called every time we touch a trigger collider. We are given a reference to the collider we touch. We test its tag, and if the tag is the same as the string value pickup, we will take the other game object and we will call setActive false, which will deactivate that game object. Now, we don't need this code we've been saving anymore, and keeping it will only confuse the compiler, so we can delete it.
And I'm going to need to actually write that. And so I guess I'll go ahead and write that here. Void on trigger enter. Okay. If not find. I said if now what was it? Other.gameObject.compare tag. Okay. Pickup, which I'm doing my way. Then other.setActive. Other.gameObject.setActive false. And there we go. I believe that is correct. Right? He actually has curly brackets. We'll just do it. We'll go ahead and do that. Oop. Let's do that. And there we go. And we'll save it. And we will stop here and we will go ahead and see you in the next video.